Hey guys, this is Vashtra Reads, bringing you another story to listen to while you do what you do. Tonight's story, The Time I Almost Drowned, is brought to you by Lydia Rose 003. I found this story on the subreddit No Sleep. I think it's a good one, and I hope you wonderful people do as well. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. If you live in Georgia like I do, you've probably heard of Lake Lanier. It's the biggest lake in the state and is about 45 minutes from my house, so I go there once or twice during the summer. Not the actual lake part, but the water park. What's wrong with the lake? Well, I'm glad you asked. Lake Lanier is known throughout Georgia and the other southern states as being extremely, and by extremely I mean extremely, haunted. Back in the 1950s, the government needed a new water source since their old one, the Chattahoochee River, was becoming too small. So they took down the town in the north called Lanier and created a government order to turn the town into a feeder lake for the smaller river. They didn't warn the people. One day they just opened up the levee protecting the town, flooded during spring and summer when it rains a lot. About 20 people died that day. You can look up Lake Lanier Scary on YouTube and a shitload of scary videos pop up on the history. And the most disturbing part, people go and explore the deep and videotape it. Baby dolls are still left in the houses, cars still left, everything frozen in time. When you go to the lake part of Lake Lanier, it feels like a pole. When you swim far enough, you can't touch the ground. People have drowned on the lake with nothing there. Someone even drove into the lake by accident. I don't know if they lived or died, but I'm going to assume they died. Even Usher's kid died there. No one starts to drown at that lake and lives. Well, except me. One night while I was swimming in the lake, my aunt, uncle, and my dad were up at the campsite. I started to swim to the inner part of the lake, the part where all the rotted buildings are and cars underwater. I was playing by myself when I felt a pull. Something was tugging my leg. It wasn't a seaweed-like plant that grew there. It felt like a hand, two to be exact. I started to scream and struggle to stay on top. I was too far out for anyone to hear me. I was only 7, but my swimming was pretty strong for a 7-year-old. I started trying to kick the thing that was underneath me, but to no avail. I gave up. I let it take me underwater. I started to drown when I felt something pull my arms and pull me up, and I was back to the shore somehow. I started to cough and looked up, and I saw a man. He looked like a kindly African-American person. He wore a hat with no shirt on and swimming trunks. The only problem? My family and I were the only ones camping since it was a Sunday night, and I didn't have school the next day. I thanked the man. I coughed up some more water. He said it was no problem and started to walk to the campsite. I followed him and asked my dad and uncle, who were making hot dogs on the grill. That man saved my life. I told them, and they looked at me like I had 2 heads. Lydia, what man? My dad asked, confused, and I stopped. The man that just saved my life and walked up to the campsite. I looked, and he was gone. I told them what happened, and they looked spooked. My skin was still cold from the water and oxygen, or lack thereof. I went to sleep that night and had a dream, a very odd and off one. The dream consisted of a man, a wife, and their little one. It looked like it was a little while ago, since the lake looked so small. The wife, husband, and a little girl got onto a decently sized motorboat and sped off. After a few moments of driving through the water, they started to sink for no reason. They weren't wearing life jackets, and when the boat went down, they started to drown, specifically the little girl. The dad starts to swim for his daughter, unable to save her. He screams, "Lydia!" My heart stopped. That was my name. I continued to watch, my breath being taken from my body. The wife shortly after starts to drown due to being tired. The husband starts to cry and eventually lets the lake take him. I woke with a start and started to cry. The man was trying to prevent me from the same fate. I haven't forgotten about that day, and to this day I refuse to go into water that isn't a pool, specifically lakes and oceans. Every time I go, I see the same man watching me, making sure I don't drown. I find it comforting, really. He was protecting me. Every time I see him, I know I'm safe. I know I won't be hurt. Nothing like that happened since. But thank you for listening to this story. My family thinks I'm psychotic and hallucinating, but I know I'm not. It's been almost 10 years. In 2 years, it will be 10 years since the accident, specifically Labor Day weekend. Look up Lake Lanier. Listen to the stories. My story isn't a horror story. I'm just saying what happened that year at the most haunted lake or waterfront in the entire South. I hope you enjoyed that one. I know I did. If you did too, please consider hitting that like button. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Feel free to drop a comment and I'll reply to as many as I can. If you would like to read the story, I will leave a link to it in the description below. If you have any stories that you would like me to narrate, please consider posting them in the subreddit I created just for you gur/Vashtra reads. Until next time.